right, folks. Everybody got their snacks and their beverages and a comfy, in air quotes, seat, a comfy wooden seat. I think we're going to get rolling. So welcome to this afternoon's ACF event. This is Event Accessibility 101, so welcome to you all. Okay, so we're gathered here today on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. It feels important for me to acknowledge these territories as a settler myself. I'm a white settler person, and I work in this neighborhood. I spend a lot of time in this neighborhood, and I have learned a lot about this neighborhood and what it was like before settlers arrived. And I don't know if anybody knows this about this neighborhood, but this was a place of luscious clam beds before settlers arrived, where Indigenous peoples would harvest that as a main part of their diet. And those clam beds are no longer here. They no longer exist. So I think about that when I am walking through this area and how very different it is from how it once was, and the imprint that mankind has made on this land. And we know that things change, but it reminds me that taking care of the land as it exists today is still important, because in another 100 years, people will be looking back and saying, this land was very different 100 years ago. So it's important to take care of this land and recognize where we are, who were the stewards of this land, and how this land has changed with the imprint of human beings since time immemorial. So if folks are willing, I would like to offer just a moment of reflection to think about what this land might have looked like without concrete buildings, with vibrant water and clam beds and trees and birds chirping in the sky, in a natural environment. So just take a moment to picture that in your mind. Okay, that was a beautiful picture in my mind. I hope you enjoyed that. So thank you all for joining us today and participating in this Accessible Community Forum on Accessibility 101. This is event accessibility, so it serves well that we are at an event together. And this is presented by the Disability Foundation and co-hosted by ConnecTra Society. My name is Amy Amantea. I use she, her pronouns, and I am your facilitator for today. A little bit about me, if you were curious. I know you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyways. I'm an artist, I'm an actor, I'm an advocate for folks in the disability community. That includes myself. My lived experience is legal blindness. I'm also neurodivergent, and I live with chronic pain and chronic illness. So my life intersects with the disability experience in many ways. I work actively in the arts space. I said I work in this neighborhood, so I'm with the Arts Club as one of the many things that I do, which is just along West First here in the neighborhood, and work primarily in arts access, and that includes event accessibility. So I spend a lot of my time engaging with disabled artists and working in arts accessibility, both for patrons, artists, and audience members. The purpose of this forum today is to gain insights and feedback from community, from you all. It's really important that we engage about this conversation. I don't want to be a person that sits in my house and doesn't get out into the world. I'm sure other people don't want to do the same. They want to get out, we want to engage with folks, and we want allies to know how to make events more accessible so that when we show up, we're not isolated, that we feel included. And we only get to do that by educating one person at a time through our feedback and our experiences. So that's very, very valuable. So ConnecTra very much values these diverse opinions. So I think that's important for everybody in this room to know that these perspectives are valued in this space. We try and make as safe an environment as possible for everyone to share, so please be respectful for what others have to say, because there's going to be, I'm sure, a difference of opinions and perhaps conflicting access needs when we have conversations about these things, so every opinion is of value. So just a few housekeeping things before we dive into discussion is that this particular forum is currently being recorded, and it will be posted to ConnecTra's Facebook page and to its YouTube channel at a later date. So you can check that out when those become available. If you'd like to ask a question, we would ask that you please raise your hand or indicate in some way that's accessible for you that you would like the microphone. That way it can be captured in the space and for the recording, and a volunteer will come over and bring you that microphone. Again, recognize and appreciate and respect each other's differences and opinions, as we also want to respect everybody's time, because the more people that we can have in the space to learn from, that can share, the better our conversation will happen today. So here's what's happening on our agenda: the welcome and introductions, which is happening right now, the discussion, which will follow, and the discussion will go to approximately 2:55 p.m., and then we'll do a little closing summary, and we'll be done by about 3 o'clock. So that's the plan. That's the plan. We've got a lovely group of panelists today. I will say some esteemed guests sitting amongst me. I'm very privileged to be at this table with these folks. Some of them I'm meeting for the first time, some of them I know quite well, and some of them I know by reputation. So I'm really excited to be in this space with folks. So I think maybe the best way to do this, I was going to introduce you all, but now I feel like I've just talked a lot. So are you all comfortable introducing yourself and your title? Does that feel organic? Okay, because I also don't have you in order, and that seems like a ping pong thing. So if we start at the far end of the table, maybe I'll put that in your hands, Kay.
Hello, I am Kay, they, them. I work at Grunt Gallery. I am the exhibitions and accessibility manager. I am a white, soft-bodied adult with gray hair the color of wet West Coast sand. It's shaved on both sides. I have about a dozen piercings in my head and a tattoo of an X on my right ear. I'm wearing dark clothing with a vest and a bright orange button that says they, them.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Lai. I use she, her pronouns. I am the accessibility planner for the city of Vancouver. I've worked there for about 4 years and a half. And my role is to work with the community to develop the accessibility strategy was passed in 2024, and now we're implementing this strategy. I've been born and raised in Vancouver, due immigrant family from Asian descent. I have black hair, and I'm wearing a blue and brown shirt. And I have a lived experience of having cerebral palsy since birth, and I believe that steers the work I do in a meaningful way with community. Thank you for inviting me.
Hello, I'm Brianna Ingram. I am a woman with dark shoulder-length hair. I'm wearing a black blazer and a shirt with black, white, and blue polka dot pattern. I'm the manager of access transit planning at TransLink. My team leads the development of accessible programs and initiatives for conventional transit and for the HandyDART system. We, of course, work very closely in partnership with TransLink's operating companies and frontline staff who are the face of delivering those services. And in my role, the team also supports 2 advisory committees to get a lived experience perspective.
Hello, everyone. My name is Porson, and it's an honor for me to be here. I have a black comb-over hair, brown glasses, blue earring on my left ear. I'm wearing a black blazer, navy blue dress shirt, and a black pants. I'm a technology solutions manager with Wavefront Center for Communication Accessibility. I've been with the organization for about 4 years. I am an individual with hard of hearing, with hearing aids, so I was born with the hearing aids, with the hearing loss. My role involves a lot with working with closely with individuals and businesses on providing audio accessibility and communication accessibility as well. So been working with a lot of different events and venues in providing audio accessibility for people to be able to stream sound from anywhere they're sitting in the venue. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dora Patkos, and I'm the Senior Accessibility Manager for BC PAFCO. PAFCO runs and owns 2 venues, the BC Place Stadium and the Vancouver Convention Center. And the goal of PAFCO, the mandate, is to drive community benefits for the people of BC. In my role, my goal is to drive the initiatives that has been outlined in our accessibility plan. So similar to Karen over there, I'm also in charge of the strategies as well as executing the plan that has been published. For a visual description, I have a long blondish hair. I'm wearing a blue dress with black tights, and I'm wearing a greenish jacket. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. See, I told you, well-esteemed and snappy dressers I'm hearing. Thank you for the visual descriptions. For us who are blind and partially sighted, I appreciate that very much. I want to throw this first question out to the room. Obviously, I have a list of questions based on the survey that went out, but maybe volunteers can be standing by with microphones because I hope people will volunteer this. What is your biggest barrier when you are attending an event, whether it's when you get the invitation to go or deciding how to get there or when you arrive? What are the things that you think about that are the barriers to getting there or when you are there? Anybody want to offer something? I'm keeping them moving today.
Hi, it's Allison. I think I know a couple of you on the panel. 3 things are, is it close to transit? Is it how many spoons I have for the day? And the cost of it. Because, you know, I don't have much of the money due to lack of job or, you know, dependable job. So is it going to be free? Is it going to be near transit? And if I have low spoons, will I be able to see it online live? And then ask questions through being it on Zoom.
Thanks, Allison. Have we got some other offers before we start the discussion?
Hi, I'm Brianne. Kind of along the same lines, like what my energy level is for the day and if I've got something else going on for the day. Will there be stairs or not? What's the other thing? I guess that's really it. Energy level, stairs. I thought of something else, but I can't think at the moment.
So physical venue space is important. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Reagan. Just as an accessibility note, something that would be helpful for me in the future is if you also have a way to like put the question in writing for people with auditory processing difficulties.
That's a
so
great
I think
note.
I got it. It's what are your barriers when you're going to an event? So yeah, duration, distance, cost, awareness of staff for accessibility needs. I find that is like a huge thing when I'm trying to phone ahead or ask questions. There's just room for growth in that area. And then also I've had an experience at, can I name a place that I went or should I not? I've had mixed experiences at a location going to a concert where I had one time where I phoned and asked about accessible seating, and that was pretty positive. And then for another event, that was a paid thing, and they have a lower fee, which was great. And then for a free event, when I phoned to ask for tickets for that as well, they said they don't do the accessibility seating for free events, and they had already like sold out the accessible seating to people who don't need that access. Mm-hmm. So I think consistency for things would be really good. And then also, I loved for that same venue that I was able to bring a companion with me for a reduced fee as well, because I have a variety of disabilities and sometimes I can get places on my own and other times not. And yeah, cost for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think there was some movement up here, Graham, too.
Hi. One of the issues that I have is I've been to a number of public events lately, and with regard to the accessibility of washrooms, at some places I've seen, they said they have accessible washrooms, but because I have a power chair, I get in there and I get trapped in the cubicle, or I can't get in the cubicle, or sometimes if I'm able to transfer out, it puts myself in jeopardy. So informing the staff in major events where the accessible washrooms are, how many there are, and directions too. I've been in a number of instances where that has failed. They didn't know, and I got sent on a rabbit trail all around the event. And the other thing is in public buildings, in particular hospital. I was visiting my sister-in-law who had an accident and had to use the washroom, and they said there was an accessible washroom there that I couldn't get the chair through. It might have fit a wheelchair, but it wouldn't fit a power chair. And then had to go 3 floors trying every washroom, probably about 10 washrooms to find a washroom that was down on the main floor that nobody knew about, but was there. It was just general information. Right. And then one other part was just the SkyTrain. While riding on it, sometimes it's a little irksome sometimes when you can't get to the elevator because it's under repair or being worked on or has just failed or something like that. You don't know that until you get to the elevator at the bottom and you're ready to punch out and go, oh, I'm not going to get out. Go back upstairs, go to the next station. And more than one occasion it's happened where that elevator was out as well, so it was 2 there, 2 back, and 15 or 20 minute delays is a little frustrating.
Right. Any last hands before we let our panelists jump in?
Hi everyone, my name is DP, and I wanted to bring up parking. It is very difficult to find accessible parking, especially when you have a oversized van, and you can't even find accessible parkades. So that's a challenge for me, and also just having elevators and ramps, especially elevators that work. So yeah, that's the challenges I get sometimes.
Thank you.
Also, there's people who like just are waiting in accessible spots. So then a lot of times we'll have to like poke our heads through and kind of wave them off because they're picking up food orders. So that's really frustrating as well. That's it. Anything else? Okay.
I have a comment related to the accessible washrooms. I've had a lot of experience lately where like there's an accessible stall, but the toilet paper is like not accessible for someone who has like any kind of difficulty with motor skills. It's like down, low, that I think is a consideration that could be made. And then also, I remember when I was younger growing up, there seemed to be more accessible stalls that actually had sinks in them, because some people I don't personally need that regularly, but there are some people that do need access to a sink, and it's just, perhaps a bit more private to be able to use that than having to go out in public. And then recently I was at a university that had a brand new, recently renovated washroom that did not have an accessible entry door to the bathroom. There were 0 accessibility stalls, but the sink was accessible, it had the consideration for the roll up. So it was just super bizarre that this was an oversight, and
a brand new
the
build.
only accessible bathroom was on the main floor of this 10-story university annex. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can tell we will have a lot to dive into. Was it Reagan?
Yes.
Can I make an offer? If you are comfortable, I can text you the questions so that you have them written.
I would prefer not to do that.
Okay.
Just for next time, if
Sure.
you're doing it, I'll do my best to hang in there today.
Absolutely. If that access need changes for you, let me know. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can.
Yeah. No problem.
Using your screen here, you can have a PowerPoint running right now with people.
We
The
could.
projector wouldn't work.
Yeah,
We're trying so hard.
That would solve it for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Especially those names that are hard to understand.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yep.
That would be helpful for everyone.
Access needs change on the fly, so I thought I'd make an offer. And yeah, no problem. Okay, so lots and lots of stuff that we can talk about today. I want to start off with this concept of transit. Because in our survey, 19% of the survey respondents agreed that transportation was one of the biggest barriers to getting out to any event. And that actually happens before we even get to an event, right? And I think that actually goes with the whole spoons thing that Allison was talking about. And I think a lot of people are talking about capacity and spoons. If you don't know what spoon theory is, it's basically this idea of how much energy do I have to get to and enjoy something when I get to it, and maybe it's just easier to stay home because I'm exhausted already just thinking about it, right? So if I had asked Brianna some questions about transit in general, what are the things that TransLink is doing to boost accessibility, to think about the elevators that are broken down, signage, educating staff, those kinds of things? So can you give us an update as to where TransLink is?
Yeah, TransLink is always working to improve the accessibility of the system. I think one of the most significant changes that we made that just wrapped up last year was rolling out Braille and tactile letter signage at all the bus stops across the network. So that provides better information for people who are blind or partially sighted to know that they're at a bus stop and not like a parking sign or other sign that might be on a similar pole. Also to know which buses stop at that stop so they know that they're at the one that they need, and have customer information phone number to be able to get the schedule for the next bus that's arriving. We also do collaborate often with major events when they're happening in the city, particularly around accessibility needs. A really great example recently was Vancouver hosted the Invictus Games, and the closing and opening ceremonies were quite significant events that TransLink ran an additional shuttle from the lower entrance to Stadium Chinatown Station to support people accessing the SkyTrain more easily, recognizing that the station at Stadium Chinatown is quite a bit older. The elevators are only on one side. They only go to the upper entrance, and so we wanted to make sure folks who needed an accessible entrance but found themselves at the lower entrance would still be supported in getting onto transit as quickly as possible.
Brianna, where did people find that information? If you were going to go to the Invictus Games or any of these events where you're collaborating?
Yeah, specifically for the Invictus Games, TransLink prepared like a rider's guide for attendees that was distributed, I think, with volunteer packages and posted online as well. I think it really depends, and the kind of support that TransLink is able to provide really varies on a case-by-case basis with the specifics of the event. I know that TransLink recently ran a shuttle to support the Persian New Year celebrations in Coquitlam, and that was to provide easier access for people who were taking the SkyTrain to access the community center where the event was happening. It was a bit of a far walk, and so able to support the event by bridging that gap with a regular shuttle in place. But really, the specifics of what kind of support, as well as how it's communicated, is really tailored depending on the event.
Is there a dream scenario in which we could receive this information? Like if we were dreaming utopia? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't solve a thing unless you have ideas of how to solve a thing.
Yeah. Do you mean more on the communications?
Yeah, I mean, if you create a rider's guide, I get the same thing in theater. Like, we create these venue access guides, which are great. But if I don't know how to find it, it's a useless tool. Yeah. Right? So does anybody, do people use these tools? Or do they like the idea of these tools where the bus route is mapped out for you to get to the venue and parking is in the guide so you know where parking is, and in that guide it tells you how many accessible stalls and where they're located and the cost of the parking and all that stuff, so you don't have to go to 9 million websites to find it. It's all there. But if you can't find that one guide, right, it's useless.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Yeah. So,
just wait for the mic, yeah.
Actually, yeah, I'll leave that out for you, sorry.
So a couple of things to do with HandyDart. So I understand that HandyDart has a way of keeping a record of designated parking locations for HandyDart at different locations where people would be dropped off. So a lot of people may not know that a business or a venue can actually inform HandyDart of where that designated parking location is so that the person can be loaded and unloaded safely, right? Because some places don't allow for the tailgate to drop down and for the person to actually get on. So that's one piece. And then I'll just add to that how long it takes for the HandyDart to arrive. So if you're going to an event that starts at 9 o'clock, but HandyDart's late, you could wind up missing that. So how to address those timing issues. And I know it's a frustration for a lot of people that sometimes HandyDart takes a long time, and how HandyDart might be addressing that particular issue. So safe loading and unloading, how to sort of ensure that the place you're going has that designated, who do they talk to, and then how to address the timing issue.
Yeah, those are great questions. Thanks so much for the follow-up. On the HandyDart side, certainly the more communication that we have in advance with the venue, the easier it is to kind of figure out where is going to be a good place that is close to the door, because the operator may have other clients on the bus and needs to stay within sight of the vehicle, but also part of their role is to support the customer that's getting dropped off and bringing them to the accessible entrance, as well as having a curb cut so that if we do lower the ramp to assist a passenger off, that there's a curb ramp to get them over towards the door. The long wait is certainly a challenge that I can appreciate. I think one of the challenges, I think, is no secret that TransLink has some long-term funding challenges that really limits how many additional trips we can add in a given year. But I think additional capacity on the system is probably one of the best ways that we can improve that, just by making more trips available and having the budget to do so.
That, Karen, there was also a question about bathrooms that is somewhat related to what we're talking about in terms of I think really in terms of when people say that they have accessible bathrooms in a venue, what that actually means, right? Because accessible bathroom means something different to everybody, right? Like soap dispensers are where and hand grab bars are where. And so how can venues communicate what these, you know, what the bathrooms are and where they're located and what you can expect when you come to a venue? Because I think that's probably the goal is, you know, they can't renovate the bathroom overnight, but if you know what to expect when you get there, you can make an autonomous choice.
Yeah, I know we every year my building, my facility management counterpart goes through a capital plan, and they outline the amount of city-owned facilities that they're improving. We do follow the Rick Hatson certification standards to go through the facility checklist. It's an ongoing issue. Accessibility won't happen overnight. And there's so many diverse perspectives on disability, on accessibility, and we're not going to get it right the first time. When we were developing this strategy, accessible washrooms did come up as a #1 barrier. Well, not #1, but near the top, along with attitudinal barriers and transit. But so we are working on it. I would advise all venues to promote, to communicate about the washroom accessibility very clearly on the brochures and wayfinding signage to see if it's accessible and build awareness of maintaining and sustaining accessibility. A lot of places put in equipment or use tables in the accessible washroom, making it not accessible. So it's always educating, it's always promoting the current signage, but we are trying to make facilities more accessible, and it's the community feedback we receive and working with community.
Thanks, Karen. As an event organizer, when I organize events, I take photos of the bathrooms inside the venue, and I include them on a website for an event that I'm advertising, or I measure the dimensions so people know what the turning radius is. Again, I feel like when I go to a venue, it's as important for me to know what is accessible as it is to know what isn't accessible. Because again, if it's not accessible, don't hide it from me, let me know. Because at least I know you're thinking about me and what my needs might be. And I know that you're working on it, that you know that it's not accessible. Let me just.
Follow-up question for Karen?
Sorry, was that a follow-up for Karen?
So Karen, I just did a quick check on a couple of community centers, and there really isn't accessibility information on the community center websites, which would be a great place for it. So when people are planning their trip, there could be wayfinding information as well as facility accessibility information, including a map. So people, they have their phones, they can pull that up, it'll get them there, and it'll help them find their way around the facility. That would be great. Another point perhaps is the leisure access program, because I know people with disabilities often are accessing the leisure passes, and to be able to collaborate with them in providing accessibility information when the leisure access one card is being provided to people.
Perfect. I'll take that back.
Good. Yay.
Do you still have to provide proof of income for that leisure access program?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Zoe.
You do?
Sure, it's question and comment as a mix, as always. One thing that, at least based on my experience with digital accessibility, is that we spend money on accessibility. That's a good thing. It's not perfect, but it's doing. But the part that we are having problem, whether it's digital or physical, is that we are not maintaining it. So the whole journey for the person with disability is broken. For example, you can get to a restaurant, but washroom is not accessible. Washroom is accessible, but it's not wide enough. So it would be nice for organization, whether it's Translic, City of Vancouver, or private businesses, to have a follow-up on a yearly basis and then hire a person with disabilities to actually go through their journey and get back to them, say, hey, Translic, this station is not working for this. So Translic actively goes after, or any organization other than that. First of all, it creates a job opportunity for person with disability that they are auditing actually the system, and you maintain that investment that you have done to make things accessible really is working. Otherwise, it's easy, for example, to spend money on braille dots on stations. There's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes you have seen that there is a braille imprint on the signs that is so high that you cannot even reach there. So what's the point? And you think, okay, the person that actually went with that idea, that was not a person with disability. So this connection between actually individuals and organization hopefully make the money that we are spending really worth the service that we are providing. Thank you.
Thanks for that comment. Okay, I know. Go ahead.
Yeah, just related to that comment here, I recognize that within like different businesses and departments for the city, et cetera, there's like an accessibility person that works there. Something that I think is also beneficial is there are people that you work with that either themselves have disabilities or family members, and it would be kind of cool every once, whatever time, cyclical time frame, where you have like a little forum at your workplace to say, hey, like, oh, I experienced this with my grandpa, and like this would be helpful for that, or my friend and I, we were trying, you know, like just where you're actually engaging the people within your workplace that are already on your payroll, and you can like have lunch together and like talk about or what they've seen in the community. And I love that idea. Like, I don't have the capacity to have a job, but I have some time where it would be great to break my isolation and be like able to help any of these organizations in some way for like a couple hours, one day, twice a month or something like that. I'd love that. Okay, thanks.
I'm going to move on to some questions so that Dora and some other folks get a chance to use their microphones. So Dora, we're going to talk a little bit about venue seating, because I know that that popped up as well. So large venues and stadiums often have, or claim to have, accessible seating, but many attendees with disabilities face significant barriers. We know this, right? From poorly placed accessible seating, to broken elevators, to overcrowded aisles, and to non-functional accessible doors, yada, 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 no companion seats, all of those kinds of things. So what are some of the things, what are some of the challenges that the venues have? What are some steps that venues are taking or want to take to make accessible seating more accessible instead of just like ticking the boxes? Because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes.
Yes, thank you for this question. It's very timely, and this does come up, I have to say, from time to time, especially in case of the stadium. Some of you might have experienced coming to this stadium for a special event. There is a lot of pieces there, I think, in this question that we should address. So first, with regards to the access itself, we encourage people with any sort of mobility issues to use an accessible entrance. That's the point where you can actually get from in the stadium from level 1 to level 4 to any of those levels. It's an elevator that's installed there, so you can get to any levels wherever your ticket might be. I know there was also a question in regards to ticket price points. So we do have accessible seats throughout the stadium. We have it at different price points typically. We sell our tickets through Ticketmaster, so they are one of our partners. The accessible ticket sales are controlled by Ticketmasters as well. They offer the accessible seats with one companion in the accessible seats section itself. When you're purchasing your ticket, you can indicate to purchase an accessible seat with your companion there. I'm not sure if there is anything else that you would like me to address there.
Well, do you have an idea of what the price range is for accessible seating?
So similar to when you would purchase a ticket for level 4, there is no difference with regards to if you're seated at one section. I believe there is not a difference if you're choosing the accessible seat versus choosing the same section's seating. And because we have both levels available with accessible designated seating at various points of the stadium, that's usually how it's managed. We are looking at different ways to sort of how we should phrase accessible seats, because some people might need different access versus those with mobility issues. It's under review, so hopefully that's going to be something we can share in the later future. We are working with our partners at Ticketmaster on those pieces.
Just really quick follow-up to that. Do you have any process to verify? Like, unfortunately, in the world, there are people who abuse these privileges that are set aside for that. So if it's through Ticketmaster, is there anything to stop someone else from doing it so the cost is less?
Like access to entertainment card or something like that?
Well, so, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wonder, because, for example, the Chan Center, when I phoned, I had a conversation with the person that explained, I don't necessarily have to disclose my disabilities, but just where there's a bit more of a barrier for someone who does not need the access.
It's a very tricky question, I have to say, especially given the different range of abilities that we have, and to see who we would offer those seats for or not offer. So as far as I'm aware, from Ticketmaster's perspective, there isn't any process for that at this moment. Again, it's under review, so hopefully there will be something in place perhaps at a later date that would more formalize those bookings. What we do say, we have an accessibility email address at BC Place Stadium, for example, so we do get questions from people who need access and the tickets are sold. We always encourage those people to reach out to Ticketmasters to see if there is any relocations possible through their system. At times they can make some changes, but it really depends on the available seatings and how they can sort of reseat people.
And Dora, when you say it's under review, you know what I'm going to ask. Who's reviewing this? So, community involved in this review?
It is, yes. So I think with a lot of these accessibility pieces, we do work with various groups of people with different abilities. So we work with some really great advocates for different abilities that sort of advise us on what they would like to see within the stadium and what would be the best approach. And we've heard some really great feedback from them with different ideas of how we could integrate a change. So we are taking those back, but then again, Ticketmaster is our partner, and sometimes these decisions are not just in our hands. So we have to have that conversation with them and come to a common understanding of how we would like to proceed.
Now, if you are in this room perhaps and you want to work with BC Place or with the City of Vancouver on getting involved in an accessibility committee, can people apply for this position or?
So we had some interest in the past, specifically for BC Place, but for Vancouver Convention Centre, it's the same approach from PAFCO's perspective. As I mentioned, we have the accessibility email address, and it's welcome for any of you to email to. It's accessibility@bcpavco.com. So usually it's myself actually monitoring that email address, if not one of my colleagues, but I do keep an eye on these requests, and we have had in the past where we got in touch with advocacy groups and invited them to collaborate with us on initiatives, or just to hear them out, hear their opinion about any sort of involvement they would like to, any sort of improvements they would like to see, and any ideas they might have that maybe we haven't thought about before.
Great. Karen, you want to add for the city?
Yeah, for the city of Vancouver, we do have an accessibility committee. It's 16 people on the committee, 11 people from the community, and then we have five staff on the committee, and the idea is to open up communication between the community and the staff to get more feedback from the community. Every year we start doing recruitment by like August. It's on our website. We open it up, and we usually go through a selection process, and then we bring it forth to council by October or November to do. I think it's 2 or 3 year term. We're just working out new terms right now, but yeah, the applications will be open starting in August.
Awesome. Yeah.
Just one more thing to add from our side, from PAFCO's side. Our accessibility committee works a little bit differently than the cities. So I think there was a question in terms of like having internal staff providing feedback, those who might actually have some sort of disabilities, as an internal source of information. And we do have an accessibility committee, and it's a great source of information for us to bring in different perspectives. They come from different departments, which is also very, very helpful for us. So facilities, event planners, it can be really any of the departments. It really represents the people of BC with the versatility of the component of this group. They come from different backgrounds, and most of them has some sort of disabilities. So we do use this source as sort of like a really important consultation piece for any sort of involvements and improvements that we do.
Awesome. Brianna, you want to shout out how people can...
Sorry, yes, if I may also put in a plug, TransLink has 2 accessibility advisory committees, the Access Transit Users Advisory Committee for conventional and the HandyDart Users Advisory Committee for the HandyDart system. We, similar to the city, run an annual recruitment typically around the summertime. And are always looking for new applicants. And I've got my card with me, so if anybody is interested in further information, happy to connect.
Does it pay?
The TransLink committees do pay an honorarium for each meeting attended, yes.
Awesome.
And there's Cindy Death as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amy, this young lady's had her hand up several times, but she's not.
Oh, thank you. Blind girl can't see hands.
It's okay. I'm just wondering in terms of the...
Graham's going to bring a mic over so
Okay.
that you're captured in the recording. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I've had a couple questions to do with transit, but I'm just circling back to the accessibility for the BC Place. Have you guys proposed there to be alternate costs for accessibility tickets at any point? And in the future, is there going to be discussion about that? Because obviously cost is always going to be a barrier for people with disabilities. They have excessive expenses, or they're unemployed or underemployed. So I would say to advocate for access, cost is also maybe right up there with the bathrooms. So, and you said sometime in the future several times, but I mean, a reasonable time frame is something that people are looking for some answers, or like circling back, like it'll always be an issue that's coming up. So, and yeah, how to get on. You said you work with different advocacy groups, but we're all a big advocacy group in here. So, I mean, for sure there's 1, 2, 5 people that could participate and kind of add their voices right here, so.
Thank you. So with regards to the ticket prices for our events, that's not something that's set by the venue. So we provide the venue, but it's actually set by our clients. So unfortunately, we don't have control of that. We can certainly provide that feedback to our clients that there's a request, and I can take this back. But to provide a lower cost to attend an event, it's not something that the venue could actually facilitate.
I understand, but like as for a partnership, usually you have some leeway, you have some.
We want the venues to be our advocates and our allies.
Right, so I need to just say, oh, we don't make the decision, throw your hands up. That's not enough, right? Like we need you guys to push harder for us because there's nobody else doing it. So you can say you'll take back the feedback, but you do have some influence that can do more than we can right now in this room. So we want to see using that influence.
Yes, certainly. I'll take this back. Thank you for your comment.
That's just what I was going to say too. It's like, to me that sounds like an excuse where like that business is actually not interested in accessibility because you're saying it's someone else's responsibility. So.
Awesome. Kay, we're going to go to you with this question, and I think folks are starting to notice that all of these are intertwined, right? It's like a big spider web of things, and all of these things intertwine with each other in one way or another. So this circles back to the idea of staff training, volunteer training, and how we train folks in an environment. For me, I think about access and inclusion as two different things, right? Access for me is like when I get to the space, can I get into it? Can I access the things that I need? And inclusion is like, who talks to me? Who makes me feel welcome in the space? So Kay, how can venues use their staff, their volunteers, how can they train folks properly to make their environments more accessible and inclusive? I mean, what are some of the things that you're doing at Grunt Gallery?
I'm just switching my brain from ASL to English. I'm so sorry, Amy. Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. I will try and be succinct. What are some of the things that you are doing at Grunt Gallery to make the space more accessible and inclusive? And how are you involving staff in the training around access and inclusion?
Again, this is Kay. I totally wrote answers to our prepared questions, which is not what a discussion is. So bear with me. Grunt Galleries. So I am the exhibitions and accessibility manager. And my role is that artists show up with an idea of what they want to do. And while we do work with some artists who identify as having disabilities or disabled artists, in general, most of the contemporary art world are non-disabled artists. They will come with an idea, and the idea that they have is generally designed to, again, serve audiences that look, sound, or speak like them. So what we try and do with the gallery is we try and challenge these artists to consider that their audience is not them, that they haven't even considered the people that they are creating barriers for, but also that if they are going to come and be here on these unceded territories, that there needs to be some consideration about the audiences that are here. So there's a lot of challenges that we have as a small, I said I was an artist-run center. We are a tiny staff of 5 regular people, but we have been operating in Vancouver for 40 years. And so in those initial conversations that we have with the artists, they start thinking about how they can actually offer what is sometimes a really inaccessible show, because their contemporary practice is about creating conflict or challenging their audiences to think about things that are not accessible, to then how they can think about accessibility, whether that's physical, whether that's venue, whether that's cognitive, whether that's safety. But we can't do that just as a staff or as an organization. So one of the things that I have been doing over the last 5 years is working on residencies. There are 2 residencies that we do. One is non-visual and the other is non-verbal. The non-visual residency invites blind, low vision, partially sighted folks to come, and the ground level piece of this residency is they get paid. And that's the extent of the residency. If they don't talk to us anymore after that, then they did what they needed to do by applying for this residency, because the goal is so that we can empower more local non-visual artists to actually have a practice and eventually get to the point where they don't have to keep fighting just to be recognized as artists. With that said, we then invite them to participate in our staff meetings, to participate as, to critique the shows that we have, to let us know how we're doing with our tactile items, to potentially commission them to produce our tactile items for the artists, and be themselves. We might have questions. We definitely mess up a lot in the process, but they are not consultants. They are our artists that we pay, and we are lucky to have them during that time. The nonverbal residency is the same thing. While it has taken a little bit longer because most people recognize silence and nonverbal communication as being connected to not hearing or the deaf, there are many people who don't have access to speech. I am nonverbal quite often. I am hard of hearing, but as you can tell right now, for those of you who are hearing in the space, I am speaking, so it's not all the time. There are also queer and transitioning folks who stop using their voice for safety as they go through hormone replacement. There are folks who are medically mute. There are folks who are neurodiverse and do not have access to speech. And the whole part of not being able to speak English such that your peers recognize you as being a voice worth listening to, being educated enough, using the right words, that can be a major barrier for folks for whom English is not a primary language, a learned language. And so this whole program is trying to acknowledge that speaking is not necessarily the best, the right, the perfect way to engage in the arts. And it's the same thing. Those artists are paid, and I'll tell you, it's $2,000 is the fee right now that our program has. And then they continue their process as an artist. And then during that engagement time, we muddle through it. We sign, we type, we dance, we gesture, we touch, we take photographs, we figure it out, and it's not perfect, and it's not one way, and it's incredibly messy. And what I think that we're able to do at the gallery is, because we're such a small, scrappy space, we're able to embrace mistakes. We're able to not be everything to everybody all the time, because we can't be. We can't anticipate everybody who will come through the door. And by trying to embrace that flexibility and not be so perfect, We're trying to allow for all these amazing and sometimes so scary things to happen together. Because at the end of the day, the gallery is still the institution. We hold the power, we have the rent. We can invite people in and say that we want to host this safe space, but the power dynamic is always such that we will still be there after this messy, beautiful, cool or not cool thing happens. Long answer, and thank you for repeating the question, Amy, but I think we're doing it by being messy and human and real.
Thank you. I love the answer. Porson, you've been patiently waiting. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about technology. You're all about technology. Technology changes so quickly and so rapidly. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing with technology, and then maybe share a little bit about some stuff that you know might be coming down the pipeline in technology for communication?
Yes, so with technology advancing, my role is just kind of to keep up to date with what the available technological products are out there. I specifically work with audio accessibility. Our organization, our values and goals is to bridge the gap between the hard of hearing communities as well as the deaf communities, as well as the society as well too, and just kind of having the inclusive opportunity to bring everybody together. In the case for events that we've all been talking about, the technology that we brought over to our organization is providing audio accessibility for people who wear hearing aids, who are cochlear implant user, or just people with different level of hearing losses that they can just wear their own wired headphone or Bluetooth headphone. And when they're at the event, for such as like a concert at the BC Place or the Vancouver Convention Center or any outdoor festival events, you can simply just be in the event, and with an app on your phone, you're essentially just streaming sound straight from the microphone and coming up from the sound console. And so this is kind of a most innovative, game-changing step for a lot of people. Especially for myself, I rarely do attend concert. Wearing a hearing aid is a little bit difficult to hear very clear and great quality, great clarity. But with the Bed here, which is the brand of the audio accessibility, you're essentially just feels like you're in a recording studio and you're hearing exactly what's coming out from the microphone. And this application is free for everyone to use. It does have an accessibility map that lets you know which venue has them installed in. And this gives people ahead of time, like, I'm curious if this venue, this theater, performance art theater, have audio accessibility, and then they can just go there, simply download the app. Once you're inside the venue, connect it, and you're just streaming the sound with that. Traditionally, if you're familiar with hearing loop induction system, this was an old way of setting hearing loop in the venue, and they're generally a little bit more costly in compared to audio or Bed Here audio streaming. Because with hearing loop induction system, our organization, we have an audiology clinic. So we have 3 audiology clinics kind of spread across in BC. A lot of the hearing aids manufacturers, they're moving away from this component called a telecoil. Telecoil is what allows you to be in the magnetic area, and when you're inside a venue, you can simply just hear sound straight from the sound, similar as you're using Bluetooth. But with hearing loop is that because the manufacturer have been moving away from T-coil, they're now just implementing a small component, which is Bluetooth. And so now we notice that like people with any headphone can simply just go and stream sound that. So this was kind of one of my biggest project that I've been kind of working with a lot of different venues. And I could list a few theater that has them right now. The Metro Theater on Granville I think it's Granville Street. The Chapel Performing Art Theater for the city of Burnaby, they have it implemented there as well too. In the past, we worked with different events such as the Vancouver Folk Music Festival. We've been working with them for the past 3 years and have Bet Here installed them. And it was kind of a really great experience because people who were going to the event and wanted to hear music, they were so happy to be able to just hear exactly where they are. And you don't necessarily have to sit in the front. You can be anywhere from the outside of the range. You don't have to worry about it. As long as you're in there, you're just going to hear a sound right from that. And so I thought that this was kind of a very innovative project that I've been kind of working with. And yeah, and at the same time, it's like every year we would kind of go out to certain like audio technology accessibility and see what are the available for us to bring and provide the accessibility as well too. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's called Bet Ear, so it's spelled B-E-T-T-E-A-R. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Does anybody have any specific questions, a person, about this? Because sometimes with technology too, I'm a little bit of a Luddite with it, but.
Yeah.
Graham's coming around with a microphone.
It's Allison. So I'm part of the Folk Fest board and spearheading the Jedi and A committee of the Folk Fest board. We did have discussions about the Better Ear. I'm wondering, because we do have multiple stages, how the Better Ear would it pick up on both stages or just one, or like how you differentiate that, and how people who are, so that's question one. And then question two would be, if people are not technologically savvy, how they could get onto something that seems to be daunting.
So great two questions that you have. The first question is kind of more of a technical aspect of it. So I'll use in a scenario for Vancouver Folk Music Festival. They do have multiple stages. One is for the main stages and about, I don't know, 30, 20, or 2 stages. 3, yeah, so they have 3. So the technical part of it is that there's an access point that cover for large coverage, and then there's access point that cover for small coverage. So it's just whenever you're nearest to the closest station, the Bet Your app can actually recognize which where you're standing and that you're trying to connect to stage 2 or stage 3, for example, and then stage 1. I'll use another scenario for conference meetings. Vancouver Convention Center, so they have 2 ballroom, 3 ballroom, and they always be a divider in between, and then the app will let you know which room would you like to be in, so exhibition A or B, and then they can select that. They're going to stream sound from this audio, and then the other one they can stream sound from the another audio. So this is a lot of flexibility that I'm actually involved with the installation to kind of make sure that like people who are in this area are picking up sound from where you're trying to attend to. The second question, for technical people who are not technical savvy, that's definitely a concern. So my role is kind of, there's a lot of different things that I do with the clients or the business that serve for those who are hard of hearing, is to provide all the resources, to provide training. And a lot of their volunteering, their work, and they are kind of working with the people who either identify themselves as hard of hearing or they don't identify themselves. They might kind of reach out to them for support. We also do have like resources to provide to our business or venue to let them know that. Another thing is that if for those who don't have a smartphone or an iPhone and Android, the venue can provide you a receiver with a headphone. So you don't necessarily need to download an app. They can just provide it to you. The app is already available, and they can just tap and they can just wear it. They don't need to worry about, setting it up or anything. It's very similar with the traditional FM system where you have a transmitter and you got a receiver. So Bet Here can also provide that, and so the staff member at the venue can provide that to them. Yeah.
Those are great questions. Thanks, Allison.
Great question, thank you.
Yep. Has anybody in this room heard of or experienced an accessibility concierge? Is that, just shout out a yeah if you have, because I want to. Yeah? Do we love this idea?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. An accessibility concierge is like an information stand, you know, and, but it's all about accessibility. So you can show up there and ask any of your accessibility questions. You can call, you can get anything you need about accessibility from this station desk area at any event. And I think they're fabulous. And I would suggest that any event that gets booked has one. It's like a one-stop shop for all your access questions. And for me, access is about options. So the more ways in which you can provide it. You know, people often are handing me Braille copies of stuff, and I'm like, I don't read Braille, but thanks for the offer, right? So just because it's in Braille doesn't mean it's accessible for the blind, because only 2% of blind people actually read Braille. So the more you know, the better. I want to give our panelists an opportunity to ask any direct questions of our audience as well, because they had some thoughts about access and venues. Do you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask of our expertise in the room about something you're curious about in terms of venue access or experience? It's okay if you don't, I just thought I'd give you the opportunity. I didn't send this question in advance, so I didn't give them any time to prepare.
Can I ask a question from a festival, like a property perspective?
Let's give you a microphone. Sorry, so we can capture you in the recording.
Hi, yeah, so I'm from a festival property on Vancouver Island, so I'm coming from a festival perspective. I just had a curiosity about at what point in the process does it become too much and you make the decision not to attend an event? And that's gonna be like very different for many different folks, but it'd be good to know at what point in the process. Is it from the time you're on the website? Is it from the time you get to the box office? Is it from the time you're looking at the bus schedule? Like, what is that point in your journey that you decide you're not going?
Yeah, to the audience, yeah. So I guess that question's like, you know, how many barriers do you encounter before you're like, that's it, too many? Because I mean, if there were no barriers, you'd go, right?
Yeah, I would just say transit is one of the biggest ones for me personally, not having too bad of a physical disability, but yeah, having very, you know, not inconsistent, unreliable transit access. It's like once it's like an hour, then you have to add like, what if something happens? And then there's weather issues or something. So having to commute more than an hour somewhere, knowing that in between that, things can go wrong. So yeah, the distance in transit.
Thank you.
I thought that it would also be really helpful if there are a number of advocacy groups around the town to help to either enlist their support in providing people who could do training on the SkyTrain system, because I have a number of friends that says, oh, you go there, I wouldn't even try that. Or I got there, I get confused between one level and the other. I don't know where I am, and it takes me 45 minutes to get to find out. And when I finally do, I'm on the wrong train going the wrong way, so I just say, well, no, pardon the French, but the hell with it. And then just drop it. Is there any plan in having accessibility groups speak to that issue?
Go ahead, Brianna.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. TransLink does have a travel training program right now. It's quite small, and the format is really more focused on large group workshops. So different agencies and community groups can request a workshop, and the travel training manager will arrange to come and deliver a workshop on how to use conventional transit. We are looking to expand that program over the coming years, and one of the models that we're very interested in pursuing is, as you've described, sort of peer-led one-on-one travel training so that you're also able to learn from someone who has a similar disability to you. I would say we're still a couple of years out from ramping up to that level of travel training, but it is certainly on our radar. Another thing that we offer right now is for people who use mobility devices who are uncertain about boarding buses. There's a number on our website that is in the accessible transit section that folks can call, and they can make an appointment to go to one of our transit centers, and one of the operations trainers will work with the individual and just have opportunity to practice boarding and disembarking from a transit bus without the pressure of a whole bus full of customers waiting for you to figure it out. So that's another piece that we offer in the meantime.
So just, well, does that include the step-ups? Because in some stations between one type of train and another, there can be a 2-inch gap, which can seem to be an insurmountable hop. When you hit it, you bounce, or you can't get it, or you get stuck in the door.
Yeah, that is a challenge with the SkyTrain system that I'm afraid I don't have an easy answer for how we solve. I think with the new SkyTrain vehicles coming, those ones will be a little bit better in that front. Sorry, for those who didn't understand, I think what the gentleman is describing is when you're boarding the SkyTrain, particularly using a mobility device, there's sometimes sort of a step up between the platform and the floor of the train, which does not help that right now TransLink has a variety of different SkyTrain models. So the doors also, depending on which train has pulled in, the doors will open in a different spot. So you can't just set yourself up and know that the door is going to open there and you can just wheel right on with enough momentum. That height differential does vary depending on how crowded the train is. So that's one of the things that makes it difficult to really standardize and get exactly flush with the platform, unfortunately.
Thanks, Brianna. Dora, I know you had something you wanted to offer before we...
for the audience to...
Okay, great.
Yeah, just to follow up, like, is there somewhere currently where elevators and escalators that are out of service, like, is it posted? Because I run into that a lot at different stations, and there's no... Is it on the website? I don't know if they're all up to date, but like it doesn't say like when they'll be back in service and stuff. So I think that's another consistent barrier that I see to like timely transit access.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I only caught part of your question, but I understand it to be around elevators and inconsistent availability of elevators in our stations.
And escalators.
And escalators. Great, thank you. That is definitely a problem, especially for people that rely on them to access the platforms. A couple of years ago, TransLink expanded the service alerts program to include station access, elevators, and escalators. And so that information is available on the TransLink website. And if you use a specific station often, you may already be signed up to receive text alerts when there is a problem with that station, and those will now include access and elevator and escalator outages. In the long run, we are working now to, whenever we upgrade escalators, actually both elevators and escalators, we are upgrading them to a newer type of escalator that is better suited for the busy environment that our stations have, and able to withstand the more constant use than an elevator in a lot of other spaces may have. We do recognize that there is a need for additional elevators at stations so that if one is out, it's not completely removing the accessibility of that station. Unfortunately, that's a program that needs funding for us to be able to implement, and so it's more of a long-term aspiration.
Is there timelines for when they'll be repaired, posted? Do people know what to expect?
I think that it would vary from situation to situation, and we do post that information when it's available. I don't have specifics on sort of how that's communicated, though.
Awesome. Got a couple more hands.
Yeah, just another follow-up, Brianna. I understand that people who are blind or low vision can call ahead to stations for individual assistance in navigating the station. Is there a particular number or a place on the TransLink website to find that?
Yes, thank you. And I would add that it's not just for people who are blind and low vision. I think anyone who requires assistance at the station can call. Again, in the accessibility part of the TransLink website, there is information about the station assistance program. It's a number that someone can call. Best is about 10 minutes before getting to the station, and if somebody needs assistance navigating the station, needs assistance in tapping their fare card to get into the system, then a station attendant can meet you at the station and can assist with those kinds of activities.
Okay, thanks. This is something that I have like a lot of fire for, and I recognize that you're representing your organizations, but like when I was under 10, my grandfather had a stroke and was in a wheelchair, and now I'm 45, and so at least in my lifetime, there's been so much awareness that people use wheelchairs. There's elevators that go out of service, there's budgeting. And I hear you saying like, oh, it's a few years out or whatever, but this is a problem like right now, today, for people that are not able to get to where they need to go, that have to reroute like to the next station and go down and up and back and cut off on the other side. And, or like, it's not equal access. And it's just like not acceptable. I hear a lot of unfortunately, and so I just wonder, where does accessibility fall on your budget lines? Is it at the bottom? Because it seems like it's always getting like pushed back and later. And like this fellow here talking about the gap trying to get on the trains, like that's ridiculous, you know? And I'm privileged in that I use poles. I'm getting, intermittent use of those. So I can use the escalator, but if someone is in a mobility device where they can't walk, access their legs, it can affect their entire day, their week, their mental health, or people just stay home and they are living in isolation, and that is really, I don't know. Anyway, I would be happy to take anybody's business card to talk about suggestions for things, because I have a lot of passion and awareness. I don't just think about my disabilities, but anyone that I know that has different abilities than me, I try to frame their experience too when I'm out and about and like take note of that. So yeah, thanks for listening.
I just wanted to side note the platform thing. This chair, I've had a lot of problems with that with the SkyTrain. Never any other chair, so I don't know. They just don't make them like they used to, or like my OT tells me, oh, go on a certain way or whatever, and I'm with him, he's a service dog, so I make sure he's on first, and it's a whole, this jacket that I wear, like when the weather's better, I won't have to wear it, but it like moves the joystick, so it's like, it like drives the chair. It's just like a whole thing when I get on the platform. Anyway, I hear people talking about it, so.
Okay, we are right up against questions.
Amy, this is Kay.
Yes, Kay, go ahead, please.
Oh, cool. I think one of your earlier questions was about the barriers before you arrive at an event. And I wanted to talk about a burden on audience. So we've talked as professionals, knowledge keepers up here of venues. I find that as somebody wanting to attend things, the sign that I will not go to something is access on request. I find that it is internalized ableism that I feel like a burden, but to have to then call, which I can't, or email or coordinate, and then be told that access will be there because I requested it. that doesn't actually respect a disabled body, the time that we are all sharing, the not being able to make it to an event, the not having the energy. And so I think this whole barrier before you even buy the ticket, and then you get the ticket, and then that hour, that day, that week that you are preparing to do it, that you will push yourself to do things that you maybe shouldn't or will affect you for the week after because you feel like you owe something to the venue or the organizer or the city or the very nice person on the other side of the email who has helped you get the assistance, and then you can't show up or you don't show up. And so I think that, I mean, the logistics, scarcity, money, all of these things are major barriers on this side of the table. And I think that even if we were going to be in a world where those things weren't there, that question of where access sits on the budget is a very good one, because if we did have all the money, would access go to the top? Would it be the top line item, or would it still be at the bottom and we would funnel money into other programs on the line? So this long-winded response is basically to say that I try and encourage the artists I work with or the venues that I actually have a connection with to say, stop planning for a non-disabled audience and instead pick a need, pick an access need that you want to prioritize, and that is your primary audience. That disability in all of our different shapes, sizes, colors, flavors, textures, that it's difficult to be everything to everyone, but that if you do one thing really well for a disabled audience, that all of a sudden you're actually shifting it so that it isn't about that accessibility line, it's just about putting on a good event. It's just about having those things. So I just wanted to say I appreciate all of your comments. I hear you, I see you. We're not fixing it today in a 101 thing. I can't fix everything, but it's not about fixing. Sometimes it's about showing up and seeing each other. And thank you.
Thanks for that, Kay. I think that's a great button. Oh, but I see movement. Is there hands? I see movement.
We gotta get more mics.
You got to get more volunteers. We'll make these the last two, okay?
Hello, my name's Dan. I'm blonde, white, wearing glasses in full black. I use a walking frame. I have a question about what the city of Vancouver is doing for major events coming through, and then just completely neglecting accessibility. And then I tend to deep dive and do research, and I find out these, like the city of Vancouver has like a event checklist, but they don't have any like rigorous standards, or some things are really just there's no information on them. For example, the Junos that came to major music event, I had to like really dig for accessibility information, and the only way I could get like a small scrap of that was through some of my contacts in the music industry, and a lot of them didn't really know what I was talking about when I was like, okay, what is this festival, what is this venue like? Has it got stairs? I needed to really describe to them kind of what I was looking for. Another thing was like the Junos block party. I was trying to find out, okay, is there any like accessible washrooms, or is it step-free? And yeah, there was no information about that. So the real huge lacking in the government structure for accessibility and these events is massive, and that's my experience, and there's so many other people out there that have the same questions, that have the same experience. But yeah, so that's kind of like what is the city of Vancouver doing about, I know, setting those standards into place and that legislation, and yeah.
Yeah, like, sorry, to Dan's point, like at what point is there some sort of recognition pre-permitting or pre-special event permit that would require some kind of an accessibility plan that's submitted to the City of Victoria in advance? Or sorry, Vancouver, from the out.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, it is, as Kay mentioned, accessibility is really messy. It's really tricky because there's so many partners involved, and we are not the best communicators between players. But one of the things on my workload is creating a municipal public partners table. So one of the things that we heard from community is that we don't talk to one another. So it's actually starting from the beginning, where we bring in a rep from Vancouver Public Library, like Pasco, whatever, to actually be in the same room. So hopefully I will begin that in the fall, getting the ducks in the row from the internal side. But yeah, there's a lot of players at stake. We don't get it all right. And there's a lot of diverse needs. But I hear you loud and clear, but there's so many people at the table.
Okay, yeah, just one last question.
This will be the last one.
Okay. So just in terms of accessibility when it comes to being inclusive and like the social, psychological safety in spaces or at different venues or events, like what are your varying organizations doing? Because that's something that is relatively cost-free, just attitudinal changes, like leadership being strong enough to lead their team to say, this, non-English speaking person or this, person that might be a little skittish because they have anxiety or whatever it is, like we include them in this space, at this venue, at this event, within the community. So like what active steps have you taken, if any, to be inclusive? Because, for example, I've been to a concert at BC Place. I've been, scolded for standing in the wrong spot when, it's a concert. A lot of people are kind of scurrying off to whatever. So I do feel it was like racially motivated. Same with like buses that just leave you. They look straight at you and then they just leave you. So it's like, what are you doing to make spaces anti-racist, inclusive, socially and psychologically safe for all people?
It's a big question, panelists. I'm only giving you 30 seconds. Oh, I'm not joking. So sum it up for us, because one of our access needs today is to finish on time.
I can take the crack at it.
Go ahead, Karen.
So I've only been at the city for 4 years, and ever since I started in the development of this strategy, I see more internal staff talking about accessibility. And what I needed to do, my first task was to get leadership buy-in. If the top doesn't buy in, then there's no point. There is developing a presentation for them, getting training We now have an internal staff training disability awareness 101 that is available for all staff to take. We're doing a community of practice where all internal staff can participate in. We have an internal website that accessibility is one of our tools, one of the options of the internal website. It's slowly but surely getting there, and we don't get it right, but it is accessibility and inclusion is a lot more talked about than, well, I don't even know if it was talked about before my time, but during my time it's great evidence that accessibility is one of the priorities.
Thanks, Karen. Anybody else want to go next, or?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. This is something that I'm very passionate about as well. Representing PAFCO as part of our accessibility plan, one of the first things that we were trying to address is training, because the cultural change is so important internally before we do any sort of external changes, right? So we do have mandatory training now, and it's fairly new. It's sort of like similar to Karen's organization. It's a 101, as much as we could capture in terms of stigmas, in terms of ableism or anything like that, to address those very important pieces that do come up during when visiting an event or so. The training is mandatory for all team members, and it's something that we will probably need to look at and revisit on an ongoing basis. Add information to it as things change, as we have more features around the stadium or at Vancouver Convention Center that we can include, so the staff is fully aware of what we have on site available as well. And then we've also partnered with Connect Autism to introduce some neurodiversity training. Neurodiversity is such an important piece. I feel I'm also a neurodivergent person, so and my family is on the spectrum as well. So I fully understand the need of our public audience to have the support with any sort of sensory needs or so, and that it's not enough to have a sensory room, but also people who work at the stadium needs to have a strong knowledge of what that room really does to people and how that space can help them. So training, I think, is a huge piece. It comes from the top, so we did start with our leadership team first to start that sort of like cultural change, and now it trickled down to our team members, and all team members are going through the mandatory trainings now. So fingers crossed, it's gonna improve, and as Karen said as well, it's probably not gonna be perfect, but we're working on it, and we keep working on it until it is as good as it gets.
There's no finish line in this work, friends. We just keep going. Yeah. Brianna, you pick up the mic?
I can go next. This is Brianna. One of the things that TransLink has recently done to improve access and inclusion was developed a language access policy. So this commits TransLink to providing public information in a wider range of languages and providing options for people to communicate with us in languages spoken by 5% of the population or greater. We are still working through implementation of this policy. I have definitely been pushing for ASL to be included as well. TransLink has historically done a great job of providing ASL for events that are hosted by Access Transit Planning and that are really focused on accessibility. But of course, people with disabilities want to engage on a much wider range of things that TransLink does, and not just our accessibility plans. So really important that we look to do that. And Kay, I'm taking your comments about accommodations being made on request to heart, and we'll take that back to the team that's implementing to see how we can avoid that on our end.
Porson, Kay, any last words?
Yeah, so I'll add on about inclusivity with our organization. So our organization is not just audiology clinics. We do have other departments. A lot of our staffers are mixed with deafblind, deaf. We have two deafblind intervener with assistive dog with them. And so a lot of us are kind of very experienced in our own field. We do kind of train and kind of share our challenges, our wins throughout our weekly meetings and things like that. Our organization is not just audiology. We also provide other services such as the senior outreach program. So we do have volunteer and staff members that are working with senior clients. We do have employment counseling services team where they work with individuals who are trying to apply for a job, find employment under the disability and any other very type of job that applies to them. We do have deafblind interveners as well too, audiology clinics, and we have a team of marketing team that are working on just kind of spreading awareness of what the available accessibility out in the market. So when we work with different organizations, collaborations, we kind of work to kind of present these findings, and also my role is working with the venue and training the staff on how to use our audio accessibility. So that's something that we have already kind of established this work on, just being able to kind of our value are all inclusivity. So that's something is why I'm very happy to be part of this organization and continue to do so consistently. Yeah.
And Kay, you want to add any last words?
This is Kay. When you said that, my eyes went to saucers as I was processing everything. I think I want to leave it off with a Grunt Gallery is a couple blocks away. It's awful sidewalk, so I want to advise you before you decide to make the trek that unfortunately it is awful sidewalk if you come from this direction. But should you ever be able to make it over to the space, the invitation is to come and critique it. Come tell us what we're doing right, sure, but also tell us how you want to engage in an art gallery. And I think that's how I would like to leave it. Thank you for the space today.
Thank you, Kay. We are just on time, and so as every moderator, I get the last word. Yay me! So I'll just tell you quickly what we're doing at the Arts Club, which is one of my many gigs. I'm the accessibility coordinator there at the Arts Club. We do have a theater right here at the BMO Theater Center, and of course the Stanley Theater on Granville Street and one on Granville Island. And one of the things that I'm most proud of recently, as we're talking about seating and the lack of accessible seating, is that we know that not everybody with a disability needs access to removable seats, that some folks are okay with the typical theater seat, but they need just specific areas in the theater that work best for them, for sight lines or whatever works best. So I was able to implement a $20 ticket for any seat in the house, and you get a free companion seat with that. That also works for the subscription. So it's like at the Stanley for 5 shows, it's like $100 for a season subscription, and you get a free subscription with it. 2 people for $100. That's unheard of because those subscriptions are like $400 per person. And the way that we are trying to make sure that those go to people with disabilities is asking folks if they have an Access To card or a CNIB card or some kind of card that you get with, I don't want to say a membership, but the disability card. And I'm the access coordinator there, so if you don't have it, have a conversation with me. Because I know that people with disabilities don't necessarily, I can have a conversation with community and I know whether you're faking it or not, right? We know. So I'm really proud of that, and we have a pretty robust access website. So my information's right on there, and I will offer people complimentary tickets if they want to check out an ASL interpreted show, an audio described show, a relaxed performance show, share with us feedback. I will exchange tickets for feedback. So please explore what we've got. Okay, friends, that's all we've got for today. So I want to just give a big thank you to our esteemed panelists. We've got Kay Slater. Oh, okay, well, let's do that first before I say their names. A clap and a clap and a clap. Awesome. We've got Kay Slater from Exhibitions and Accessibility Manager at Grunt Gallery. Thank you, Kay. Karen Lai, Accessibility Planner for the City of Vancouver. Brianna Ingram, Manager of Access Transit Planning at TransLink. Porson Lee, Technology Solutions Manager at Wavefront Center for Communication Accessibility. And Dora just one more breath, right? Dora Patko, Senior Accessibility Manager for BC Pavilion Corporation. And that's myself, Amy Amantea. And this is on behalf of the Accessibility Community Forum on Events Accessibility 101, presented by the Disability Foundation and co-hosted by ConnecTra Society. Thanks, friends, for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the rain. Thanks for coming.